welcome to episode 44 of Rubbish Talk with myself, Alistair Meldrum.
And myself, Jane Bond.
Episode 44, Jane. Where is time flowing?
Time's gone by, Alistair. We're coming up to completing our second year nearly.
I know. It'll almost be older than me in episode numbers.
Oh,
a wee while to go before it gets older than you, Jane.
Cheers. Thanks.
Anyway, so this week we have Neil Duncan. Neil Duncan is the Chief Operating Officer for Clearwater. And as usual, more about Neil later on. But I think we've got some news, and I think we've got some sad news first of all, Jane.
Yeah, I was looking into this. This is quite sad. It seemed to have happened at the beginning of August, and it was about a landfill, massive landslide at I was going to say a landfill, but they're calling it a rubbish dump in the Ugandan capital in Kampala. And it looked like it was the only one serving the whole of the Kampala, a city home to an estimated 4 million people. Crikey, that's a lot of people for one landfill. And it just looks like it's just been built up, and the rain came, and rubbish not being that stable obviously slipped, and burying houses in the edge of the site at kind of middle of the night as well. People were asleep, and it says here that there's 21 people killed, and of those there was 4 children. That's just so sad. And it's like, we should be able to sort these out. That shouldn't happen in this world now.
But it ends up being in the developing world, it's a landfill, but then there'll be people working on that landfill site. And it's probably, go back in the UK, probably going back 30, 40 years ago, you used to have, well, in Scotland they called them totters, who would be, they would come into landfill site and they'd be trying to extract the valuable stuff, and that's what happens in the developing world. When I see stuff like this, it frustrates the life out of me. I spent quite a bit of time going to Democratic Republic of Congo looking at waste management, and the international community in the West is very much reduce carbon, do this, do that, but a lot of these countries have no functional waste management system. They've got no functioning sewage system, and we could make massive improvements for health and well-being and environmental stuff just by helping them actually manage their landfill sites properly, and both manage their landfill sites and their sewage treatment properly. And we seem to just gloss over that it's not important. So
yeah,
sorry, I'm on my hobby horse about international waste management.
Yeah, it is. It's just, you just read it, and then the mayor said it was a disaster that was bound to happen, and you think, well, why didn't you do something about it?
There is actually, there is, and there's one of the things I did. I probably still got the photo, the screenshot. There is actually a union for waste pickers. People that work on landfill site, and I did actually mean to try and get hold of the person. So that's a wee action for me for a future podcast, because I thought it'd be really good if we could actually get that person in the podcast. The person that's running the union. So
union for waste pickers, crazy.
I need to find that photograph. I'm sure if I was good, I probably took a screenshot of whatever newsfeed I saw on. So
all right, I was going to
watch this space
in your LinkedIn trawl. So the next one I've looked at is going back, more international, looking at Wales. So
that's not that international, Jane.
Well, it's a different country. So the Welsh government have put a consultation out about adjusting the lower rate of landfill disposal tax in Wales, and they've put 3 options. So one's removing the lower rate, 2 is substantially increasing the lower rate, or C, changing the materials to which the lower rate applies. It's just Wales. There's nothing. It's an 8-week consultation period, and it finishes on the 15th of September. I just read that and I thought, really? How how's that going to impact the the haulage business of soils and stuff like that. Why would you take a load of soils or whatever to Wales if you're going to have to pay higher
the standard
tax?
rate tax.
Or why would you go from, I don't know.
Yeah, it's this thing about the border, waste will move. So if the lower rate of tax goes up from £3.30 to £103.70, it's not going to be disposed in Wales.
No, even if it goes up by £10, it's not going to be
it's
disposed
going
of
to,
Wales.
it's going to go in a truck and it's going to go to landfill site on the other side of the border of Wales. What I did pick up on, I never realised existed, and I think this would be a really good idea for Revenue Scotland and HMRC, is they have an unauthorised waste disposal rate. So if you dispose of waste illegally and you get caught, you're charged £155.55 per tonne, which is 150% of the standard rate. And I did quite like that. And I did actually do a bit of digging, and I was trying to find out how many times they've charged that. And to be honest, I couldn't put my finger on the number. I was into all sorts of Welsh government reviews and data. So if there's anybody involved in Wales that's listening, I would love to know how many times or how much value you've charged that higher rate tax, and how effective that's been. Because I think that would be really interesting for the likes of Revenue Scotland and HMRC across the country. So
yeah, definitely.
I think we will put, as usual, we'll put a wee link in our show notes newsletter, and I think we've got a wee comment that we'll put up in Rubbish Talk about this. So
I think it's a good idea. We've got devolved governments and everything like that, but it really needs to be, more of a joined up approach.
Well, I helped Zero Waste Scotland when when Revenue Scotland took over the tax in Scotland. And there was a big huge financial, because there was a legal change about tax. There had to be all sorts of modelling done, and the general consensus from that review was, if Scotland applies a different rate from England, then the waste will just move, one way or other across the border. And you've got, if you're going to change these things, you've got to do them consistently. So hopefully, Revenue Scotland, Wales, and HMRC listen and start talking to each other and trying to do things together.
Yeah.
You can live in hope. You can live in hope.
I'm not saying anything further.
And then I think we're still in Wales. We are still in Wales because the Royal Mint, which is in Cardiff, I think. Was it Cardiff?
No, it says here it's in Llantrisant.
Oh, I'm glad you had to pronounce that.
Llantrisant.
So they have now got a facility where they're processing electronic waste to extract the gold and other precious metals, which then goes back into the coins. So I thought it was good. So lots of companies extracting electronics and bulking them up, but here's an example of a plant where they're actually extracting the metals and putting them back into something used.
Yeah.
Having said that, I don't think I've used a coin for about 3 years.
No. Well, they do say make into commemorative coins, or perhaps jewellery. So,
So other uses as well.
Yeah. And what else did we see? There was something on the BBC, and there's a video about a day in the life of a street cleansing worker in Edinburgh. He's been there for 34 years, and I think he was talking about his job. And he says there are surprises every day. Some of them I can't say on camera.
I want to talk to the guy. We want to talk to him.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think this was in the back of the looming strike, which managed to be averted in Scotland at the last about 2 days before. But what I never knew was, did you know that payout that was agreed applies to all council workers? It's not just to refuse collection workers. It's to all council workers. So the union was basically using the refuse strike as a lever to force the government's hand to increase the wages for all council workers, not just refuse.
Crikey.
Which is a bit
bit underhand, actually, isn't it?
Nobody's really telling us that, are they?
That's a bit sneaky.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then another BBC story again about a street cleaner, and he was in the southeast of England, and seemingly he's a really chatty, knows everybody, looks after the place, etc., etc. And a member of the public had found out that he'd never been on a foreign holiday before, and they managed to raise £3,000 to send this street cleaner on holiday. And he worked for a waste management company Veolia, and they said that it was very nice to the public, but he was not the street cleaner wasn't allowed to accept any gifts, so he was unable to take his holiday.
Oh, that's a shame. Poor guy.
But the local travel company, the good news story here is the local travel company organised a competition, and he was the only entrant, and he was allowed to accept his holiday.
He got his holiday anyway.
So he got his holiday because it was through a presentation, a prize giving rather than a donation. So there you go. We'll put the wee link to that one. I thought that was quite a good wee interesting story. So it's good to see, people, hardworking people doing the day-to-day job, getting a wee bit of coverage on the mainstream media. So
what quite funny was I was just reading it through it, and it says he's got a love of Elvis Presley, which he often played from a speaker on his dust cart. I'm like, did dust carts not go out of fashion when we had dust? Are they still called dust carts?
Yeah, of course they are.
Right, okay, I just thought they might be called something a bit more technical now.
He'll be like the barrowman, where he's got the brushes and the shovels and the wee trolley thing, and you don't see them nearly as often as you used to. There we go. Anyway, what other headlines have we got, Jane?
Well, we were talking about these plastic caps, on like plastic bottles, and the fact that now you can't take them off.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah, but they're blinking annoying. They're really annoying.
The number of posts I've seen about people moaning about it. But I just go back to look at the transformation with drinks cans when we used to have a ring pool. And
you're showing your age now, Alistair.
Well, for younger people that don't know what a ring pool is, when you used to have a drinks can, that whole bit used to peel off in the same way as if you have a tin of sweet corn that's got an easy open lid. That, and all you used to have all over the place was you used to have aluminium ring pools scattered on the ground because people would litter them. So it changed it from 2 bits of litter to 1 bit of litter, and really that's what they're doing with the plastic bottles. And from a recycling point of view, it's keeping it together, so it's not, the lids unfalling through the cracks when they're trying to recycle them and so on. So
okay, so
I know
there's
annoying,
a method in the annoying.
Yeah, but what I find even more amusing, and I know we try not to be political about this podcast,
do we really?
But the number of people. So this is an EU directive. So in theory, the UK does not need to have these tether caps.
Oh, really?
But because manufacturers produce for Europe, which includes Britain, they're just saying you're getting the caps. So there's all these people grumbling that why are we complying with this EU directive about tether caps? And in reality, it's down to the producers of the products that are saying you're getting them whether you like them or not.
Fair enough. Yeah,
So
we're not producing special ones just for you lot.
I'm finding that quite amusing. But I suppose on a more serious point, the one of the things I've been up to see a waste operator that's been handling the dry mix recyclate. So that's your cans, your ferrous, non-ferrous cans, and often your plastic bottles, and they're sorting that, and then they're getting sort of high quality product from that. But one of the things they're really concerned, and they've put a huge amount of investment into the optical sort machines that do that. They sort it automatically. But they're really concerned that the government or some of the councils are pushing to put soft plastic into the mix. And then what happens is the soft plastic obscures the bottles and stops that all that technology working. So there's a valid reason for trying to get the plastic out of the waste stream, but I think we need to be careful and talk to some of these recycling facilities in terms of what they can and can't do, because otherwise we're in danger of, at the moment they're recovering really good plastic, really good metal, and there's a danger if you start putting soft plastic in that, they're not going to be able to do that as easily.
So if you put plastic bags and film on it, it's just going to wrap around it, basically, isn't it?
So you're probably looking at a sort of survival bag type scenario where maybe, yes, you can accept soft plastic, but you have a separate color bag, and that gets taken out, at the front end. But that's more technology required. And then to be even more complicated about it, there's a really limited recycling market for that soft plastic. It's pretty hard stuff to recycle. So who's actually physically not just baling it up, who's actually taking the plastic and turning it into another turning it into a product? Do
you know what? We're going to end up with another bin, aren't we?
No. I think they're trying to avoid that. It's certainly in England they're trying to avoid having lots of bins.
Well, they've gone the opposite way, haven't they? How few bins can you get?
In Scotland, we've got plenty of bins. So there we go. What's next?
Well, I've got just a plug, I think, isn't it, for the Resourcing Scotland event, 14th of November in Edinburgh, in the Assembly Rooms in Edinburgh. And this is, I think you know quite a bit more about this than me. I was just seeing as you're one of the headline acts.
So I am the opening act, Jane.
You are the opening act.
I don't know how on earth they managed to do that. I think they've only done that because they've limited me to 5 minutes. So I think they're hoping I can't say too much wrong. But we are actually, as well as the opening act, there is going to be a rubbish talk special, which the agenda and program for that is in the afternoon. I'm not quite sure the plan. I'm not organising it. Somebody else is. So it's going to be.
That's even more worrying.
Well, exactly. It's going to be turning the tables on us. So I'm not sure exactly what's going to be involved. But one of the things, we've also sponsored the event, and the bit we've sponsored is there are a number of free tickets for the event for, in particular, young people, students, people starting out their career, to encourage them to come along to the event. So there's a number of places, and the event has been organised all by volunteers. So Resource Management Association Scotland, CIWM, Chartered Institute Waste Management, CISA, which is Scottish Environment Services Association, Local Authority Waste Managers Network, and RIA, which is the renewable sector. So it's great that all these bodies have come together, put it together. So hopefully it's a seminar by the industry for the industry.
Yeah, which is brilliant. That's really good, isn't it? Okay. So in terms of, for that, we were just saying as well about exams and the fact that everybody's getting their exam results. So, if you're looking at a free place, we might be useful.
Yeah, certainly for people that are thinking about coming in the sector, have a look. And myself and Mia managed to get timing right, that when the SQA results came out, we managed to put a wee post out, and what we were trying to do was link in with maybe teachers, lecturers, university colleges, anybody that's engaging with young people, because, as we said earlier on, we've got, this is episode 44. I had to check. So there's 44 episodes of content, all showing the diverse careers through the sector, and it'd be really good if you do know new people, young people that are maybe struggling to think about what they might want to do. There's maybe some food for thought, some ideas in some of the previous episodes, and it'd be great to see them shared a bit wider, out with the waste network, more to the education and training sector. So just a wee plug for the podcast. And in terms of the podcast, we do put a lot of time and effort into to doing it. You may not think that, but we do actually have to spend
We're
quite a
so
bit of time.
professional, Alistair. I think, you know.
Absolutely. So please, if you like it, return the favour by liking it, sharing it, commenting, and so on. And we'll do over the next few episodes. We will be sharing some exciting news with some of the things we're planning in the future. So
yeah, it took us 44 episodes to decide we were going to actually continue, and perhaps, we might have to get a bit more professional on this.
I know. Things move slowly. We get there in the end.
I think we also need to say there's something going on Thursday, the 12th of September as well. We've got a webinar held by yours truly on waste composition analysis and the power of targeting waste composition analysis on different waste types or different areas or whatever. So, we've got to sign up for that as well. Certainly worth listening to.
I'm sure we could put the sign up in the newsletter, June.
I'm going to see how many people come along and have a listen.
Oh, we'll record it. We'll make sure we record it so we can share it anyway. So there we go. So I think that's us for today. So Neil Duncan is our guest today. I have known Neil for many years, and he was actually one of the only people that came to my home office when I first set up back in 2002. He tries to claim he's not in the waste sector anymore, but he is really in the waste sector. He is in quite a niche of the waste sector now. So really interesting chat with Neil and his career and what he's currently doing now. So over to myself, Jane, and Neil.
Hi Neil, welcome to Rubbish Talk. How are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Good, glad to hear it. So we're going to go through a number of questions. We want to hear about you in the industry, waste management, anything to do with waste really, and how you got into this industry. So to start off with, can you tell us a bit about who you currently work for and a background about the organisation and anything you want to tell us about Clearwater?
Yeah, I am the Chief Operating Officer for Clearwater. We're based in Glasgow, do our national coverage. The main services now are looking at industrial services in terms of outages for EFW, special waste, difficult waste in terms of tankers, dealing with bigger organisations. We initially were a tankering business with covering landfill and plant, but it's more looking at sustainability and the future of where we can offer the expertise, and it's really coming back from people. The whole business is now about the people and how we develop them and how this business has been developed over the last 29 years. So Clearwater is still a family-owned business, but as I say, we're now making our way through the UK. We've got 3 depots, one in Glasgow, a small one down south in Southampton, and a reasonable sized one in Corby.
Wow, I didn't realise you were multi-country working.
Well, we are, but we're not as big as we'd like to be, and not as big as many people probably would like us to be. However, that's just about where we are now and where we can go in the future. So yeah, it's all about growth.
So what type of waste do you handle then? I mean, what's the sort of process of the business?
Well, it's not a dry waste company, and I think people look at tankering differently. But you look at dry waste, you'll talk about cardboard, brick, soil, metals, and commodities. So I wouldn't see them in this sector as being a waste. They're more of a facility management that comes from a waste process. So if that is an EFW, it's cleaning, it's ensuring that the plant's ready, or indeed after a breakdown, the plant's ready to put back up and running. And that could be within the waste streams, it could be within distilleries, it could be within sand and aggregates. We do have a special waste division which can pick up materials from oily rags to paint tins, contaminated oils. We have got CCTV, which recently was brought on board about 18 months ago, which is about underground conditions. We can see and feel what's above ground, but we need to do underground investigations, piping, and just getting that whole aspect from the civil side as well sorted. So there's a kind of variation, but they all tie in. So to probably classify it, I don't see it as a waste management company. I see it as a company that provides a service in partnership to a lot of the waste managers, or indeed to the waste industry.
Okay, that's quite interesting then. So in terms of the tankers and the energy from waste, is that just sort of from the cleaning of the energy from waste facility? Is it water? Is it kind of...
Yeah, it can be water, it could be APCR. It just depends.
You're not allowed to use acronyms here, Neil. You've got to describe the acronyms. So there's your first test.
Well, I think what I'm basically saying in terms of waste, there is not a lot of waste will come off of the sites. And what we try and do in many of the sites is reuse it where possible. So in terms of the business alone and looking at a disposal or a waste treatment, we don't have a big facility to do that, because that's not the game. The whole idea is to either reuse materials or to work with companies who can actually do that. So we are the partner of, best way to describe it, as a cleaning organisation where you will look after all sorts of people on the site. We have ERT, emergency rescue teams. Again, we look after confined space. So it's coming away from that whole, do you have a waste facility? We do, but we've got 2 people on the site. Many waste facilities have got 300-400 people on the site. We don't process a big deal of the material we got because it'll be bulked. But we're really there just to work with people that don't have that expertise within that particular sector.
Okay.
It's quite interesting, Neil, that it's almost like my background's, for a lot of years was landfill, and there was quite a specialist network of landfill contractors that went around landfill sites. Some did landfill gas pipe work, some did leachate pipe work, some did, and all the rest. And I think what you're saying is you're setting yourself up to be the contractor of choice for waste energy facilities. So when they have a shutdown, you're going in and helping them, with the cleanup or the boiler maintenance or whatever it is they're trying to do. Would that be right? Would that be a...
Yeah, and that's a fair assessment. On the back end of that, you've got biomass businesses, or you've got quarries, are all very similar processes or similar setups, and they're on the same methodology or technology to be used to do that in terms of vehicles to assist. So yeah, that's probably the best way of describing it. But like dry waste, there is thousands of people that you can use within this sector. It's a small amount. However, you do have to provide various services and various locations, and that's the challenge. You need to ensure that you're always in and offering something different, and sometimes even something better.
I like the idea of the CCTV. Is that like drain chasing and working out? That
pretty
kind of
much.
thing.
Yeah, so it's CCTV, drainage, repair and surveys. So if somebody's got a blockage, or somebody's brought a new premises, or there is yards to be handed back to ownership, then what's actually happened underground? How's the conditions? So that whole division, and there's various people within the industry do it. A lot is geared really from the wastewater and what they do and how they kind of come about it. But many organisations, again, don't want to do everything direct, so we either can do it direct for our current clients, or we're subcontracted to some of the bigger organisations who are within partnerships with Scottish Water and various public services.
The sort of lead-on question for me, Neil, is thinking about the training and staff development side. You're probably in quite a complex area. That the actual staff training is probably quite difficult as well. That you need to, you talked about the confined space working, emergency type stuff, and so on. How do you find that side of the business?
Well, that was the challenge, and because there's so many different questions you were asked and areas to cover that do need qualifications, from working at height to confined space to high risk to emergency rescue. There was we have a core, and we tap into another resource, or a resource partnership, where we pay the training and we pay the development, but we don't always have the staff that we need. So we use that as a pool, but our own core staff has increased, well, I don't know, maybe 200-300% over the last couple of years. just because there's so many ages, so many breakdowns. But really, it's a success plan from not having a driving licence to having a driving licence. We get people to ensure that there's a qualification that they can get that gives them that encouragement to get to their driving licence, or there is another qualification that we do where if you've got a driving licence or a class 2, you get class 1. If you've got a driving licence, you get class 2, you get ADR. So there's a succession planning go through the programme. And it's exact same with the supervisors. Will it be they've had an IOSH, then all the managers and supervisors go on an EBOSH, they might not pass it. A difficult qualification for the level it's at. However, they get the knowledge and experience, they get a chance to network. So there is various qualifications in training that we're now putting people through, and it's just an ongoing project. But we have been fortunate because of the funding available sometimes that we can look at. We can look at partnerships with university, which we've done, or we can look at programmes with Scottish Enterprise. But in the main, every job we do, we need to have a certificate, if not 1, 10. So it's keeping on top of that, but it's also ensuring that you keep the staff, and it's not always easy. People will move because maybe money, they'll move because of location, they'll move because of quality of life. So you've got to try and balance all that and at the same time deliver the service. Not easy, good challenge, but also rewarding when you see people coming through the system and actually delivering something back to a business which has grown.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So before we keep delving into what you're doing in a moment, taking you back a bit of time, what brought you into the wonderful world of waste management? Although I think you're trying to say you're not in waste management, but you really are.
I would have probably said in previous life I was in waste management, but and that was because that was where I was pitching it. So I worked with the railway, and when I left school, that's where I was. 7 years down the line, reorganisation within the railway was in a section which dealt with coal throughout the UK. They want to centralise into a customer services centre in Doncaster, so gave it a try, really wasn't for me, and decided that I need to look for some back closer to my home roots. There was a new company starting at the time with some ex-senior managers from a larger waste organisation, and that opened up the door of, well, if you can look at trains and you can look at coal, you can look at waste and look at trucks. So here's your camouflage training and away you go. And that was in 1999. So I learned very quickly when to hide, and how to deliver, because I had people breathing down my neck. And that's still the case, but maybe not as heavy as they were at that day when they were chasing every single penny up the yard. And then you get involved in yard processes, you then get involved in health and safety, then somebody tries to acquire you, so you're involved in acquisitions, you try and acquire somebody else, so then it's a different process. And then you touch on landfill. Well, it's now no landfill, it's obviously energy from waste, and all of a sudden you're into 20 years or so down the line, and new market, new people, but still the same thought process. You've got to get material in, you've got to do something in the middle, and you've got to have a profit at the back end. And really, to get to there, you need good people. Of course you need customers, of course you need processes, but my way of ensuring that came about was eventually decided to go and do consultancy, and through the consultancy process I learned that people were my answer. People were asking me to come in to sort it, but it wasn't the same people I was sorting it with. So as much as a human was asking me, I've got a problem, there was another human wasn't going to listen to that was telling me the solution. So all I had to do was put the two of them together, and that's pretty much what I'm doing. And doing that you do it every day, and you don't realise, and you're just networking, and you're bringing two people together, and you're bringing the solution that was always there, but just to the forefront.
I think you were actually about one of the only people that was ever at my home office on Carrick Road when I first set up, Neil. I can't remember when that would be, but it'd be probably 2002 or 2003, I would think.
Yeah, 2002, 2003, potentially about then.
I never used to have many visitors to my home office, as you can imagine.
I think you were probably about 20 years younger, so I'll give you a clue for when that was.
I know, that's it would be 2002, 2003, so yes, I was 20 years younger. And anyway, so looking back in your sort of career, any favourite roles or projects you've had through your journey? Any ones you think, oh, that was the best job, that was just like,
No, to be honest, I think people will say, okay, when you take a project on, you need to see it through. I've always had the opportunity to see majority of them through. In bigger organisations like local authority, when I took a role on that, the projects there were scaling depots down, 10 depots to 2, having to save millions of pounds. Really hard times for public sector, but very exciting for the workforce. Yeah, some people don't like it, but they were all regraded, they were all retrained, they were all multi-skilled, get better shifts, better conditions, a voice, a chance to talk, and the delivery was phenomenal. So anybody looking at public sector from the outset that doesn't understand it would say, well, they don't really you don't get value out of them, or they don't know what they're doing, or they could be doing things a lot better or a lot faster. There's so much to go on in a public sector. In a local authority, there may be 15 to 20 divisions. Well, that's 15 to 20 businesses equaling 1 billion turnover. We talk about businesses being busy and being big when they're 20 million or 100 million. Well, try running a budget for 1 billion with 15,000 people on your doorstep. All the issues. Always difficult, but I felt that the achievement of local authority was good, especially with the thought process of a private sector mindset. And within the private sector, changes which have been made in projects I enjoyed again was going from landfill diversion to actually getting something back from what was going to landfill. They now call it EFW, if you like, and the energy to waste. But the process I had was really landfill diversion, opening that black bag on a picking line and taking out the commodities that somebody had been too lazy to do at the beginning, and that was commercial properties. So the savings at that time were massive. The return on investment was 2-3 years on a piece of kit. You'll not get that anymore because people have become commercial aware. The market's very fierce, and it's a longer term investment because it's no longer the grassroots recycling, if you like. It's right into the bigger chimney pots, the bigger burn, the bigger investment, the larger organisations, and that's been unfortunate because a lot of the SMEs have suffered.
It's interesting what you were saying about local authorities. You know, there's real challenges with local authorities, but we've got some 2 pretty good guests coming up from local authorities, from slightly different angles, but you know, they've been doing some pretty impressive stuff at the local authorities. So looking forward to them when they do come forward.
Yeah, it looks like you've had quite a number of different roles there over your impressive time at work. I'm just wondering, is there, out of all that, is there any worse things or disasters or any funny stories you got apart from, you know, visiting Alistair's home office and having to play with the kids? Is there anything else that you kind of think?
There's probably loads that I don't really remember, because every day when you're on your own, you're fighting a new fight and it's a new day. One particular topic that I do remember when I was looking, people will call it a bag splitter, people will call it a bag opener. You know, I was looking to ensure the bags opened. So I did dispute about what somebody was selling and what they weren't selling. And somebody else had said to me, I've got one. Brilliant. Where is it? It says Azures. I said, okay, let's go then. Now, very naive at the time, thinking, where is that? Well, I knew, because I took 6 flights in 2 days to get there and back.
Oh my
to
God.
climb up wooden ladders to look in and see these bags getting open and go, oh, that works. That's what I'm looking for. When's the flight back? I literally was on the ladders for about 2 minutes, and I spent 2 days and 6 flights to get to an island of Portugal.
I think you should have stayed a bit longer, you know, sat in the
Maybe
sunshine.
somebody should have told me where Azuz was before I said, I'll go. They did buy a kit. It did work, and it was that, just watch what you're saying the next time. Just have a wee think about where you're actually going.
But just think how the world's changed, though, Neil. We would never do that now, would we? You would get videos, you would get this, you would get that, you would have a Teams call, you would do all this sort of stuff. And then it's only if you were going to put your hand in your pocket to pay the cash, you would maybe go over and see them. You know, whereas 20 years ago we did do that sort of stuff. We travelled, and which is a shame that we don't. You know, it's a shame.
Well, it took me fun out of it, because you're on a back road having coffee somewhere you don't know. You're thinking, what could happen to me here? Who am I actually with? Where is this going? My flight's due soon, but you've no idea how you're getting there. You just relying on somebody else that doesn't speak the language of such of first choice that you're with, going, this is the time, this is where you go. But I suppose that, for me, that was kind of just watch what you're asking for the next time.
I like it. I like it. So thinking about your role and your involvement in waste management over time, do you think you've changed your opinions out with the workplace? Do you feel you have to try and educate your family, your friends, your neighbours in terms of looking after waste in a more sustainable way?
No, they don't listen. Does anybody listen to me?
Of course they do, Neil.
We're both listening to you. We might be the only people, Neil. But
No, there's thousands of listeners listening
thousands
to
of
you
listeners,
as well.
exactly.
So, to be fair, I think the days of before the kids came along, you were always looking when you're abroad, you're like, what is in that bin? How does that trade waste work? You know, look at the state the trucks or the smell, especially in foreign countries with the heat, etc. But nowadays it's more, what theme park are we going to? What time does the water park open? Where's my ice cream? So that whole of, I look at waste abroad, I don't, there's no point in telling any lies, that the days are over for that for the time being. But to be honest, I think there's a lot of work being done outside from me, local authorities, private sector, getting people to be educated. I do feel that there's certain elements that will always be a problem. You know, if you go to bigger theme parks or holiday parks, the recycling's not great. They have what you would loosely say lip service. But there is still a willingness in many sectors to do something. So I don't have to take it home. It's getting educated from the grassroots at school what to do. There is, yes, there's still plenty of fly tip and there's still plenty of litter. Will you change all of that? Probably not. But you know, even if you're up to a local park that's not polluted with litter, there's bins there, they're getting used. And I just think it'll be a slow process, but you can get down foreign aspects and finding people, you can get down, you know, and enforcing certain issues, but I think it's down to culture, and culture takes a long time, and I think that's demonstrated in the workplace, that if you're changing a culture, you need to get people on board, and that's why they're obviously starting off with the kids, because 20, 30 years, they will be the ones pioneering the new systems, they will be the ones looking at underground waste systems, they will be the one looking at what they're getting back from the grid or what it has now, and what we'll actually have in their app on their mobile phone, you know, how many people will actually be working in these facilities, and what will the facility be in 50 years' time. So I think it's the kids that we're looking at now, not the adults, because a lot of them already, they either understand it because it hits in the pocket, understand it because the waste is getting produced, but there is a kind of care. There's always a small element that you won't get around. So I don't feel the need to harp on about it. It seems to happen in the circles and the aspects that I'm involved in, because that's just the way it is.
It's quite interesting when you you go to different places. I mean, you know, we've had all our holiday photographs recently being bins, and I was in Ireland recently and went to a big Centre Parks place, and all the bins were there and all nice and clean, and everybody was using them, and DRS was there as well, and everybody was using that and getting a fortune from these bottles, and you kind of think, you know, we're getting there, and people, you know, but it takes people to use the systems.
Yeah, I don't think we're miles away with certain aspects, but we're not too far away with others. I think that when you're introducing, my criticism for anybody introducing a system is that you need to get an operator involved. There's too many things getting put in place, will it be policy, will it be a strategy, that doesn't have an operator. There are not a lot of all-round operators in the waste industry, but there are a lot of forums, there's a lot of committees. So if they just bring the views and the committees together from the waste managers and the operators who are out there, there is a massive gap between theory and delivery. And I think that's the exact same between SME and Energy from Waste, EFW. The gap there is so big that needs to be closed, because the people who are investing the £400-500 million in a plant are the PLCs, are the money men, but the people who are actually picking up that waste are sometimes just a normal man on the streets at a one-man operation that he's managed to get 5-10 friends eventually who run a business, and there's so many of them. There's 9,000 or so waste management companies in the UK, but there's only 70 burners. that tells you everything. You need to close that gap. They need to communicate, need to understand, and training's a massive part of that. And it's not just when you talk about training kids to bring them through into being an adult profession. We have to train the people within the industry that has been the scrap industry, it's been the waste industry, it's been the recycling industry, it's been a skip hire company, but this is now leading to being a commodity and a model for energy, and it's just a different term. It's now called renewables, it's called energy. In real terms, where did it start? It started with waste.
Yeah, it's just flipping that thing, isn't it? It's like calling it resources and not waste, you know, being able to actually use what's being thrown away rather than it being just, a waste. It's such a negative word, isn't it?
Yeah.
We talked about that earlier in the earlier part of the podcast, Neil, about so often the decisions, like, so a local authority will go out to tender with something and they'll not have engaged with the operators. So the example we were talking about earlier was soft plastics. So there's a big push to get soft plastics out. So there's companies out there spending a fortune on optical sorting equipment and all the rest, and that works with plastic bottles basically.
Yeah.
It doesn't work with film. So all you've got is effectively film obscuring the plastic bottles and stopping their millions of pounds worth of equipment working properly. And in theory, it gets more plastic in the system, but it reduces the value of the recycle at the end because it's more contaminated. So, and I totally agree with you. There's not enough of connecting that loop between the operators and the actual people doing the work and the people that are either putting the legislation in place or writing the guidance or, in fact, putting the tenders out.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. So, what about your current role? What are you trying to achieve from your current role, and what's next for you in your career? So, what are you looking to do over the next 10 years, 5 years, whatever?
Good question. I think people who know me know that I don't normally get 5 years out of me in a project or in a job, so that's why consultancy was an easy hide, because I could be 20 places. Folk never actually realised that. So being in a family business, and you have to think about what the family's doing and where are they going and how they're going to develop and what's going to come next for them. So the whole working way just now is ensuring that we have a sustainable business model, and how that develops, whether it develops to be stronger in the UK, to have a better scope in Scotland. That at this moment in time is how we're looking at it, and it's not about one individual, it's about the whole team and developing that whole team just now. For myself, I'm just continually looking at new opportunity of networking, new opportunity of qualifications, not just for myself but for the business, which gives me that insight. Recently we've just been awarded a gold on the Armed Forces Covenant, which is really about employment and supporting the services that the Armed Forces do for us, and engaging with them and trying to get that better terms for how the reservists can come into employment, or indeed somebody who from the ex-serviceman can come in. And again, I'm looking at some partnerships with universities about youth from athletic background, how that if they have not managed to make it or became injured very quickly, how do we transfer their skills into the industry? Because a footballer example was, not many folk would agree just off the cuff, but has got multi-skills. They can make decisions very quickly. They have to be thinking about the team. They have to communicate, and all of these skills that they're learning from an early age, whether it be 9, 10, 11, 12, whatever that early age is, right up to the day they get injured, or the day it's 16 when they've been told, I'm sorry, you're not for us. How do you lift that person and use their skills to bring them in and back into a workplace? So we're working on that as well. So there's so many things that are going on that I don't see the path being clear for me. I just see enjoying people developing. Hopefully we develop in areas that we've never been before, and we continue to grow, and so do the people.
Well, that's really interesting. That's really quite a good philosophy. Looking at different people's and different skills, that it's not about what their sort of technical background is, but it's their personal skills that's important to bring into a business. Yeah.
I think you need to come onto Switch webinar, Neil, and talk about that. That'd be a good topic for us.
I've been saying yes to Switch webinars for the last 12 months, and every time I get to it, somebody else has got something in my diary, somebody else comes up, or it's got a time it's never right. So
I'll get you booked in.
That I got here today. Never mind talk about Switch webinars.
I'll get you booked in. I'll get you booked in for that.
So another thing is that, again, your sector, your job or sector, is there anything you want to share with people that people might not know? What's important in your sector?
I think it's important. I remember way back when I was 16, I was told it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it was a very loose phrase. But what people always said was that we'll not speak for to get someone in, but when someone shows an interest to get in, you will become better than the rest because your name will be in everybody's mind for the right reasons and not the wrong. And that was what they meant by it's not what you know, it's who you know, because you may know very little, but you're showing keenness, willingness and encouragement and potential leadership skill from a young age. But the more people you ask questions to, the more that people will get to know you. So it wasn't a case of, oh, I know him because he's my dad's friend, or I know him because he's my brother. You know them because you're in a situation that you've continued to try and develop either the business, the organisation you work for, or yourself. So what I would always say, and you know, it's still relevant just now, even when we've done sponsorships in London there this year about the energy for waste, it was how you communicate and it was how you were networking. And it wasn't a hard sell. It wasn't to try and get anybody on board or impress anyone. It was just to learn. And some of the questions I was asking, you know, some of the chief executives might have expected me to know, but you don't know everything. And what I always say to people, even in the workplace, is ask questions, be encouraged by what you're seeing happening during the day. There's many failures throughout the day, but let's take the successes. And exactly what would be the message to everybody else is that you're only one phone call away from a yes, one email away from a yes, one conversation away from a yes. You've always got to know. So do something different to try and convert that. And many people, because we're all human, will give you a chance, but you need to prove that you're interested, you're willing, and you've got that drive. There is a lot of intelligent people out there that will never be successful because they don't have that attitude and that determination and motivation to go and outwork the rest. And that's the key bit. Ask questions, work hard, and you don't always need to be smart.
Yeah, I've worked on that one, Neil, all my life, actually.
Did it work for you?
You know, don't have to be smart. You just have to chat to the right people.
When you were mentioning that, Neil, the one that popped into my head was the Grant Keenan episode we did way back. It's probably one of the earlier ones we did, and his first job was selling paintings round the doorstep.
Right.
And it was very much, you know, I've knocked on 50 doors and I've still no sold one. And it was very much, well, the 51st door might be where I sell one, and it's very much just keep going. But the other thing I was going to say there was, we've talked about that a few times in the podcast, is I think it's probably harder for younger people to build the networks that we maybe were able to build. You know, so much is done by Teams and Zoom and, you know, social media interaction rather than that, you know, meeting somebody for a coffee or meeting at a conference or that thing where you build up a bit of a relationship where you do feel you can, you know, I only met this guy once, but I'm just going to ask him this because, you know, I think he can help me or do something. You know, I think it is harder nowadays to get that network in place for people.
I think, you know, that for me, looking at it, and I said this to somebody earlier in the year, is that, and it's touching back on what I said about the SMEs and the PLCs, is that the gap there, there's a big push on, you know, without naming any individuals, but there's a big push on the green jobs and how you get people into that interest. And more so from certain individuals' point of views on the PLC side is that that's how they're trying to achieve that. And I think if they widen the scope, that SMEs have got the same issue. They need a platform, and now I call it, people think I've got an academy, so I'll say, oh, we'll use that through the academy process. We don't have an academy, but we do need an academy. We need some sort of, you do have trades, you do have institutes, but we need an academy to be recognised and to be fair. I'm not just saying that because I want you, there's a lot of what Switch and Albion and various organisations like yourself are doing to try and encourage that. But we need to have shows, academy shows, training shows, not costing anything. It needs to be free. It needs to get people a reason to go, and the reason to go is to develop their career. They don't want to go into the Indies of this world or any agency sites. They actually want to go and speak to people who they can look up to and respect. They may have heard the names but never had a chance to touch and feel who they are. And I think that's the bit that's missing. A roadshow that is going to show people within the industry what can be done, who they can speak to, how you get about doing that, and not to be afraid of not having that qualification or not living in that area and not understanding that process. Because if we don't do that 10, 15 years down the line, it will be that everybody's fell into this industry will actually fall out it because they don't have a clue how to operate it.
No, you're touching, I'm not saying a sore point with me, but Zero Waste Scotland 2012, we're going to set up a skills academy for waste in Scotland. It's never happened.
Maybe I never get the email.
No, it's never happened. It's never moved forward, and it's for the waste sector in particular, it's really lacking. And it's good. There's this focus on green jobs and green skills, but to me, every job's a green job. Every job should have a bit of sustainability built in, and I think just try to ring fence and call them green jobs just because there's a bit of funding there, to me is not the right approach. But that's me going down a wee hobby horse of mine, Neil. Sorry.
No, but I do think there is definitely an opportunity to do that, to get it right. But everything's a cost nowadays. If you're going to a seminar or going to some sort of attendance, it's a cost. Not everybody's got that money, and I think we have to appreciate that people who want to develop their career also have kids, also have bills, also have cars to pay, and the families to look after. Now, if you're asking them for 2, 3, 4, and sometimes these conferences up to £1,000, they can't afford that. But also the employer's not going to encourage them to go. If they're an SME, that £1,000 equivalent to £10,000 worth of revenue. So where do they see the value in spending that money to allow their employee to go? So we have to do something that's going to start engaging. And again, it's not just geared up at younger people coming in, because a lot of people come into this industry from other sectors. They come into the industry through redundancies and kind of fell into it again, that they have to be encouraged to go as well. So there's a mix of human behaviours that come together to give that next step. And I think that's missing.
I think we've always said as well, haven't we, Alistair, that the industry is made up of so many different skill sets. And it's not just one skill set. It's, you need engineers, you need managers, you need business people, you need marketing people, you need all sorts of different types of people to work the industry and make it work together, not just one type of person.
And if you go back to earlier on, when you talk about I'm not in the waste industry, I'm a facilities manager.
Yeah.
Because it's easier, because I don't have any of these skill sets. I'm just bringing people together. And that's the key, is that we need to bring the people together, the skills together, to make this industry work.
Yeah.
Well, the good news, Neil, is the Resourcing Scotland conference on the 14th of November, which is a joint effort by RMAS, CRWM, CISA, RIA. I'll probably get a row if I missed anybody. Hopefully I've not missed anybody. What they've done, so we Albion and RMAS have sponsored that event, and the sponsorship is to allow young people, students, people new to their career, to come along to the conference for free. So we've basically sponsored some places to try and encourage that, and so on. So we'll put some details up about that later on. But we are, as a sector, we are trying to do things, but I think there's a long way to go, particularly on the skills side. So that was a wee pitch for Resourcing Scotland conference.
And Albion.
And Albion, because we're putting a wee, we've got to get a wee pitch in. We're spending money and time doing stuff. We've got to get
something out of it.
I'll not say anything else. I was going to say something, but I'll probably get in trouble for saying it, so I'll bite my tongue. And saying that, I did go and see a client just recently, and he said to me, you need to stop biting your tongue in these podcasts. I want to know what you're going to say. So anyway, we always ask all our guests for a bit of their favourite piece of slang or dialect or an expression that you use that you like within the sector.
I don't know if many people would like it, but the expression and phrase that I have in my head quite a lot and probably say it more often than not is away up the road.
Is that your HR policy?
And you can take from that whatever you like. And do you know, there was a footballer get sent off the other night and the commentator said, and that's him away up the road. And I thought, brilliant. So
it's a very Scottish saying, actually, Neil.
It is. And it just depends on how you take it.
Well, I can't remember if I've told this story in the podcast before, but I used to work for Bar Environmental, which was part of Bar Construction, and Bill Barr was renowned for being a fairly robust employer. And he turned up at this roadwork job, and one of the labourers was standing holding the shovel, not working at the time. And Bill Barr hated going on to site and seeing his staff not working.
Mm-hmm.
So he went over to this guy, gave him 20 quid out of his pocket and said, away you go, away up the road. Sent the guy up the road, and it turned out the labourer didn't even work for Barr at the time.
Good man.
So that's a story anyway. Whether it was 20 quid or 10 quid, I have no clue at the time. But so there you go.
Well, at least he understood the phrase.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would have gone away up the road, get you a cup of tea and a butty, and come back and say, there you go.
No, I think the true meaning of go up the road is not to come back, Neil, isn't it?
Correct.
And then finally, or not finally for me, I'm going to give you a chance to have a magic wand, and you can use it for anything in the waste industry that you would love to sort out in one fell swoop.
Are we talking waste? Are we talking commodities here, or resources industry, or facilities management?
Yeah,
it's all the same thing, I think.
Yeah, I think we've touched on it several times. I've spoken to the people several times. And, you know, I just said it only minutes ago, but if there was something that I could do and could make it right, then it would be a Waste Academy.
Okay, good.
Like that? Like it?
Yeah. And last question. I think we've kind of covered this quite a lot, but if you've got one bit of advice you would like to give to the younger generation coming into the sector, what would that be? Be
transparent, be who you are, and ask questions. And at that point, somebody will always feel the need to answer it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a good one.
Sounds good, Neil. Well, that's us. We've exhausted our questions. Hopefully that wasn't too painful for you, Neil. That was
wasn't too bad, was it?
Well, thank you very much for your time. Much appreciated.
Yeah, thank you, Neil.
Right, thank you very much.
In the heart of air where the echoes ring, there's a place that fights the chaos out beyond it sings. They're the warriors for the earth, fighting every day. An environmental consultancy leading the way. They train the fighters, they sharpen the blades, battling the waste that pollutes and degrades. With knowledge as their weapon, they educate and train. I'll be on environmental, breaking the chain. From the mountains to the seas, they spread the call, aiming for a future where the world will not fall. With sustainability as their creed, they march on. I'll be on environmental, a battle cry.